They came to kill. Almost 5 died. Rio de Janeiro U shooting from helicopters, armored personnel carriers or at close range. Police officers in Rio de Janeiro have gunned down 558 people during the first 4 months of the year, the highest number in this period since the state began keeping records more than 2 decades ago. This recent spike comes after years in which the federal and local authorities put in place policies that significantly diminished police killings. But as the country voters went to the polls in October and gave their support to candidates who promised to fight violence with violence by relaxing gun ownership rules and allowing the police to fire on armed suspects. The number of people killed by the police in Rio de Janeiro jumped in 2018 to a high of 1,538, according to state statistics. If killings continue, the state's newly elected governor, William Witzel, pointed to an overall drop in homicides to argue that the approach was working. "We're on the right track," Mr. Witzel, celebrating the drop in homicides and other crimes. "We're going to continue." President Jair Bolsonaro, a far-right former army captain, had promised to give the police more leeway to kill suspected criminals, repeating a popular saying that a good criminal was a dead criminal. Mr. Witzel, soon after he was elected, Mr. Witzel said police officers should be authorized to open fire on any criminal seen carrying a rifle. The police will do. In March, Mr. Witzel announced covertly across the state we're gunning down armed suspects who have to be lethally neutralized. But some local lawmakers and activists in communities that have been the targets of violent police operations say officers are routinely carrying out extrajudicial killings. Summary executions are being carried out in favelas and other peripheral areas, said Renata Souza, a state representative who urged the United Nations and the Organization of American States to investigate. It is a barbaric. Prosecutors acknowledge that they do not have the personnel or resources to investigate more than a small fraction of such cases thoroughly. The state prosecutor's office created a task force in 2015 to investigate allegations of excessive force. Since then, Paulo Roberto Cunha, a leader of the task force, said his team faced a crushing workload, deficient forensic investigations and the reluctance of many witnesses who fear police retaliation. While the police in 2017, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights condemned Brazil as failing to investigate questionable police killings and ordered the country to do so. But the stacks of case files piled up on Mr. Cunha's desk, and in filing cabinets outside his door, underscore the vastness of the challenge. There are 14 Rio de Janeiro has long been an immensely complex state to police. Dozens of districts. Soon after the first shots rang out in the hilly Fogueiro district near downtown Rio on the morning of February 8, it became clear to residents that this was no ordinary shootout in an area where rival gangs have long fought for dominance. As an elite police squad rumbled up the hill, passing murals that have been defaced with graffiti paying homage to a dominant drug gang, a group of suspected traffickers hurried into a house. They took their shirt. Among them was Felipe Guilherme Antunes, 21. He peeled off By the time the hail of bullets ceased, 9 men lay on the ground in puddles of blood, and 4 others were gunned down outside. Police officials at the time said they were acting in self-defense. But as relatives and, according to Human Rights Watch, which examined 9 of the autopsies, some of the bodies had shots to the head or the heart. They didn't come to take them into custody, said Tatiana Antunes de Carvalho, the mother of Mr. Antunes, who said his wounds did not match the autopsy description. They came to kill. Governor Witzel and senior state police officials turned down repeated requests for interviews. In a short statement, in early May, another police operation which started with the police shooting down from a helicopter left 8 people dead in the sprawling Complexo de Mar favela. Activists from the community group Reeds de Mar guided public defenders to a house where 4 of the men had been killed. An elderly woman, the officer shot the 2 men, dashed into a nearby house and killed 2 others on a roof terrace. Public defenders entered the house and saw the remnants of blood stains that residents had scrubbed. They saw no point, they knew it wouldn't be investigated, he said. The police officer, children and other bystanders are often caught in the crossfire. In March 12-year-old Kawan Pagsoto was shot 3 times. In April, empowering the police to kill more easily has never reduced violence, said Roberto S., who oversaw security policy in the state from 2016 to 2018 and served in an elite police unit earlier in his career. Confrontation generates an unsafe environment, mental illness, and stress for police officers and residents, he said.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park,